Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk.
Normally we'd be looking at around 5 inches of rain for much of Indiana per month. And in June we saw some areas near or even over 20 inches of rainfall.
Crops are drowning in Indiana and farmers are worried. As the rain continues to fall, the question becomes, will the losses be devastating or will it amount to just another bad year? And South Central Indiana is world famous for its limestone. Ahead in our Hidden Places series, we take you to a quarry that is preserved just like it was during the peak of limestone production in the 1920s.
They were so desperate for labor during the boom period, they couldn't train enough local people to do all the work, and now, of course, that's quite different with our technologies.
We'll have those stories and the latest news headlines from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. This summer is shaping up to be one of the wettest on record in Indiana, and that means many farmers across the state are being flooded with problems. A good portion of Indiana's corn and soybeans have been heavily damaged by the rain, some fields destroyed. Barbara Brosier explains how that could impact your next trip to the grocery store.
The saying goes, knee-high by the 4th of July.
Obviously, most of the time, we're well past that stage by the 4th of July.
That's not the case this year.
Some of it is knee-high now, just knee-high now. Very uneven.
David Lau is one of several farmers in Jay County who's struggling to salvage his crops after being pounded with rain nonstop.
They should be taller than this now from our planting date by about 6 inches or so.
Many fields here are covered in standing water, and some of them won't recover.
Jay County is a 30% disaster at this point.
Many farmers across the state are facing the same challenges after experiencing the wettest June since 1895. There were only 4 days last month when it didn't rain somewhere in Indiana, and that's having a big impact on the quality of the state's crops. The United States Department of Agriculture says while less than half of Indiana's corn and soybeans are in good condition, 21% are in poor or very poor condition.
That very poor category is the category that shows that the crop is either failing or completely failed at this point.
That's a stark contrast to last year when farmers produced a record amount of corn and soybeans. Having even a small amount of failing crops can cause big financial problems because corn and soybeans cover 12 million acres of Indiana.
We've estimated the losses of just that lost production potential. We think that's about 5% of our corn and soybean crop that we perhaps have lost. It comes out roughly $300 million of lost value in terms of the corn crop and probably around $200 million of the soybean crop. So put those together, approaching $500 million.
Farmers could get some relief from crop insurance, which typically covers 75 to 85% of their losses. And they could get a better price for the corn and soybeans that do survive the wet season.
We think prices will be somewhat higher. So on the bushels they can produce, probably higher prices. So far we've seen about a 10% increase in prices of both corn and soybeans.
That won't necessarily translate to a big jump in what you pay for corn or soybean products at the store. Experts expect prices could only rise 0.1% to 0.2%, an increase most of us won't notice.
It's really the eastern corn belt that's having this wet weather problems. Guess what? The western corn belt, particularly northwestern corn belt, Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas, and Nebraska, have an above average quality crop. So when we put those together, the western corn belt is above average, eastern corn belt's below average. You put them together, we're actually fairly close to a normal national crop.
Back on David Lau's Jay County farm, it's too early to tell how the rest of the season will pan out. If the rain holds off for much of the rest of the summer, he could end up with an average crop. But that's all up to Mother Nature.
It's been said that Mother Nature has the last bat. And obviously, just as this year, she's giving us what we need, I guess, but that's not what we want.
The wet weather could also be impacting crops stored in grain bins. Purdue's Extension Office is urging farmers to check their bins for spoilage. Purdue says the bins should be checked weekly because of the ongoing moisture. Hoosiers who've sustained uninsured flood damage are being asked to report it so the state can determine whether to ask for a disaster declaration. The First Church of Cannabis wants to test the state's newly enacted Religious Freedom Restoration Act in court. The church is suing the state. An attorney representing the church says Indiana's laws prohibiting marijuana possession prevent church members from fully practicing their religion. Among those named in the lawsuit are Governor Mike Pence, Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard, and both the Indiana State and Indianapolis Police. Now, there was no marijuana at the church's first service on July 1st. The church's founder says while the lawsuit proceeds, the church will continue its services without marijuana. IU law professor Dan Conkle joins us now to explain the implications of this lawsuit. Thanks for being here
Glad
today.
to be here, Joe.
Did anyone think that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act could actually be used this way as an excuse to smoke marijuana?
Well, certainly not that such a claim would be successful, as this one almost certainly will not.
Let's go the difference between the federal law and the state law.
Yes.
The federal law came upon because of Native Americans saying that they smoked peyote, for religious.
Yes.
What's the difference between the two?
Well, the key difference is, well, first, the first hurdle that the Church of Cannabis faces is that it is its burden in court to show that its use of marijuana is in fact grounded upon a sincerely held religious belief as opposed to something else, such as the desire to smoke marijuana or the desire to mock or to undermine the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. If its motivation is not based upon religion, it goes nowhere in its claim. Conversely, the Native American Church is a long-standing group that has used peyote in religious rituals for decades, if not centuries. So that was not a hurdle for the Native American Church. What's more, the use of peyote is a carefully circumscribed ritual of using a drug that does not have a ready, broad, illegal recreational market. Marijuana is a totally different ballgame.
So what are going to be these key arguments that the church is going to have to talk about in this lawsuit?
Well, again, the first thing is to show that the Church of Cannabis is indeed a religious group for purposes of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. The church's complaint does include allegations suggesting that it does have deeply held beliefs and that it has a worldview, it has a set of tenets. You know, whether the court buys that is a separate matter. Sincerity, I think, is going to be an issue when the leader calls himself, the Grand Poopah, Cannabitarians. You know, if this is perceived by the court as being an attempt to mock the Religious Freedom Restoration Act or an attempt to mock conventional religion, I would not want to be the lawyer representing the Church of Cannabis. I'd much rather be on the side of the state government defendants. The second main issue will be, even if the challengers somehow get through the task of showing that their use of marijuana is in fact grounded on a sincere religious belief, the government can still respond, and that will be the second issue if the case gets to that point, that it may still have a compelling justification for extending the law against marijuana even to a religious practice.
All right. Thank you very much, something that we'll be following. Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brozier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. The Hoosier State is challenging the Environmental Protection Agency's new water rule. Indiana's Attorney General says he worries about the potential cost to the state's agricultural industry. The EPA recently finalized a rule broadening the definition of waters of the United States. That is, which bodies of water fall under federal regulation. The term would now include small bodies of water, including streams, ponds, and drainage ditches. Regulating those types of small waterways has typically been left up to states. 9 states filed a challenge to the EPA rule last week. Indiana will join that suit. In the first week it was in effect, police issued more than 100 warnings to drivers for violating the state's so-called slow poke law. The law gives police the authority to issue $500 tickets to drivers who aren't going the speed limit in the left lane and are holding up traffic. Right now, police say they're focusing on handing out warnings to educate drivers about the new law. A CDC report released this week helps put new numbers on the country's growing heroin problem. The latest data shows the number of heroin users increased 150% between 2007 and 2013, and the biggest increase was among 18 to 25-year-olds. Heroin use among that age group has doubled in the past decade. Here's some other takeaways from that report. Between 2002 and 2013, the rate of heroin-related overdose deaths nearly quadrupled to more than 8,200. Nearly half of heroin users are also addicted to prescription painkillers. CDC researchers note the use of injectable drugs can lead to long-term illnesses, such as the HIV outbreak plaguing southeastern Indiana and the increase in hepatitis C nationwide. Local officials say they are not surprised by the increase in heroin use, but they also admit they can't arrest their way out of the problem.
We have to focus on the traffic that brings it in here. It's hard for us to we can't just go around and get every kid in every school and try to convince them. We do the best we can to convince them that, hey, drug use is not good for you.
Law enforcement officials cite easier access to drugs in the suburbs and crackdowns on prescriptions as the reason for the increase in heroin use. Terre Haute is up to date on payments for renovation work being done at the city's wastewater treatment plant. The city got behind on monthly escrow payments and owed about $1.7 million. Mayor Duke Bennett says the city got caught up in time to meet the July 1st deadline to get all the payments in.
A lot of this has to do with just, once again, the timing, when the revenues come in. We've got a rate increase that'll be going in this year, so things will settle down as we move into the future, but we've kind of had a little bit of a bumpy road a few months this year.
Bennett says the city is also paying off some unrelated expenses that will make it easier for the city to make its next bond payment in January. The Tribune-Star reports the delay of payments drew concern from the Indiana Finance Authority. The wastewater treatment plant upgrades are expected to be complete this fall.
Hi, I'm Jared, the Subway guy, and this is my story.
After 15 years and thousands of commercial appearances, Jared Fogle and Subway have suspended their relationship. Federal investigators raided the Subway spokesperson's Zionsville home this week, removing electronics from the property. The raid comes 2 months after Indiana State Police arrested the former executive director of the Gerald Foundation on child pornography charges. Fogle has not been arrested or charged with the crime. In a statement, a spokesperson for Subway wrote that Fogle is cooperating with authorities, but that both the restaurant and Fogle agreed to suspend their relationship because of the current investigation. Longtime Hoosier lawmaker Brent Steele is retiring. The state senator from Bedford says he's not seeking re-election because he wants to spend more time with his family and working in his law practice. From 1995 to 2002, Steele served as a member of the Indiana House of Representatives before becoming a state senator. Before he goes, though, Steele says he still hopes to pass at least 2 laws, one that would open up adoption records for certain adoptees, and another that would provide families of military members with additional funeral expenses. Indiana wants to connect farmers, restaurants, grocery stores, farmers markets, and consumers to promote products and foods grown and produced in the Hoosier State. As Brandon Smith reports, that's the goal behind the state's new Indiana Grown program.
Hoosiers will be able to identify Indiana-grown products in 3 categories. Prepared in Indiana means ingredients can come from out of state, but all production happens in Indiana. Another category, Indiana-grown partners, such as Kroger and Marsh, help market products. And 100% Indiana means all products and ingredients are grown entirely within the state.
We also hope that somewhere along the line there might be a little more profitability, whether it's the producer or the retailer, for working hard to segment those products and deliver consumers what they want.
More than 200 producers have already signed up with Indiana Grown, including everything from Red Gold tomatoes, Creighton Brothers chicken and eggs, wineries and breweries, to hardwood.
A program that helps Hoosiers with their winter heating costs won't be able to serve as many people. Extra money was pumped into the federal assistance program during the severe winter in 2013-2014. That allowed customers to buy fuel during the summer when they could receive discounts. Those discounts aren't available this year because the past winter was more mild. Still, folks who are eligible can receive summer cooling assistance, a $100 credit on their electric bill. The mother of a boy who became famous for his fight against AIDS discrimination, Ryan White, is hoping to use her son's personal experience to raise awareness about bullying.
White, who suffered from hemophilia, contracted AIDS through a blood transfusion. Little was known about the disease 25 years ago, and White and his family received death threats, and their property was vandalized. Ryan White's mother spoke to young people at the Children's Museum in Indianapolis this week about bullying. She says her son was stronger than most kids and had a high tolerance for people who made fun of him.
I remember asking him, I said, Ryan, why don't you get mad? I said, don't you get mad at people when they say things about you? He'd say, oh, Mom, they're just trying to protect their own kids like you're trying to protect me. He said, you know, when you don't know about something, you're going to be afraid of it.
White was expelled from school because of his condition. His fight to return to school thrust him into the international spotlight. White's mother says she believes that fight gave Ryan more of a reason to battle for his life. There's a replica of Ryan White's bedroom on permanent display at the Children's Museum.
Dozens gathered outside a greenhouse in Bloomington on Thursday morning for a look at what's inside a local job training program. The Growing Opportunities program teaches job skills to people who are disabled. People applauded as they cut the ribbon to the nearly 3,000 square foot greenhouse where they've spent the last 14 weeks cultivating lush, leafy heads of green bib lettuce.
Turns out there's a lot of job training programs that involve some sort of a greenhouse or farm. And we thought this would be awesome in Bloomington because we're such a big food community.
Those at the ribbon cutting were offered a behind-the-scenes look at how the lettuce is grown and were even offered a taste. The lettuce is being sold to local grocers and restaurants. And Joe, they are not just stopping at lettuce. That's all they're growing now, but they're going to have chard, kale, and basil. So lots of delicious leafy greens.
What a great program. Thank you, Barbara. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. In the heart of limestone country, a historic preservationist has maintained a quarry just like it was during the peak of quarrying operations. We take you to the site in our Hidden Places series and explore the quarry's history. And who will get the contract to make Indiana University's candy striped pants ahead the multi-million-dollar contract that's up for bid. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Nature takes you places where you've never gone before.
It's watching something that's actually happened.
Nature sure draw me in the story.
Just their power and their grace.
You know, it was just so beautiful to watch them.
The movement and just watching the body and watching the chase.
Like this huge, lush, vibrant watercolor.
Gems.
There was such a shot of underneath watching these elephants swim in this deep water.
I had no idea even they could swim like that.
I saw that one monkey pulling on this one monkey's tail, and the monkey like, man, what you doing? What you doing?
It's like the theater of the wild or something.
7 billion trillion animals living on one planet.
It's like more colorful than than you think life can possibly be.
Somewhere between the mystique and the beauty of it is reason enough to sit down and watch.
That's life. And that's nature.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. This week we go off the beaten path as we continue our Hidden Places series. Our journey takes us to a quarry. My colleague Sarah Whitmire joins us now. Sarah, the limestone quarry that you're going to take us to shows us how quarrying was done in its boom days from the 1920s, though really through the current period.
The quarry is no longer in operation, but it is still completely intact. It's not only a journey to a hidden place, but also kind of a journey back in time to the peak of limestone production in Indiana.
Duncan Campbell is a trained historic preservationist, so when he came into possession of an old quarry, it was like he just won the lottery.
All the derricks, a lot of the machinery, the blacksmith shop, the cables, the cutting wire, everything was still right there on the site. They had been kind of left behind with the idea that the company would probably reopen them at some point. And then the owner of the company passed away, and the man who managed it and ran it decided to retire. And so the heirs of that company, the first quarry company, decided to sell the property.
We can't say exactly where the property is because it wouldn't be safe for people to try to find it, and they could end up getting hurt. But the quarry is on the west side of Bloomington. You can't see it from the road, but Campbell guides us back, snaking around some trees and tall grass.
We sort of keep the pathway clear, but this is where the railroad came in. That's why the derricks are proximate to that, within reach of that, so they can load rail cars. So we can go out this way. You'll start to see quarries pretty quickly.
Several hundred people worked here when this quarry was operational.
They were so desperate for labor during the boom period, they couldn't train enough local people to do all the work. And now, of course, that's quite different with our technologies. But they were importing labor, skilled labor from England, Hungary, Italy, places where stone cutting had been, in the history of the culture for many centuries, because they needed skilled labor. And they used those people in the mills as well as in the quarries.
The 1930-1940 census shows more than 60 Italians living at this site. In reality, they didn't live here, but they did spend nearly all of their time working here. Carol Fianzi's great-grandfather was one of those immigrants from Italy.
The immigrants who came early, of course, there were no labor laws. So life was very rough for the immigrants. And my great-grandfather, for example, was an artisan, but he had to work in the quarries for many years because that was all the work there was.
Eventually, Fianzi's grandfather traveled the country working on carvings and monuments. One of the things that makes Indiana's limestone different is that it has a lot of flexibility. It's easy to chisel, but it also weathers very well. That made it ideal for buildings such as the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., where there are numerous gargoyles and donor names inscribed in panels. Campbell's Quarry is in the heart of Indiana's limestone belt, where this malleable stone is found.
This whole area is under a big ocean at one point in time, 300 plus million years ago. So that is what initially created the sedimentary deposit of these small sea creatures. Of course, layers and layers of rock and other debris built up over time. And then at some point, the glaciers moved down from the north, and they stopped in around Martinsville.
When the glaciers melted, it exposed a lot of the stone. People realized it would make a good building stone. And in 1827, the first quarry was established just northwest of here in Steinsville.
I get asked quite often how more stone is there. I don't think anybody knows factually what is left. There are estimates from 500 to 1,000 years of the deposit still remaining. A lot of the issue that will come to bear now is encroachment of development, because where the open pit quarries had a lot of property and didn't have to worry so much about buffer zones to neighboring development, now that is becoming more of an issue.
Developments border Campbell's Quarry on the north side and the east side, and there's a highway nearby as well. Overall, though, quarrying is still very active in this part of the state, and the stone is still accessible.
20th Century Fox presents Breaking Away.
In the breaking away sense of the limestone industry, the sort of film version, there's all these abandoned quarries and they're full of students. Well, that's really not the case. People do go and swim in them, but I would say there are many, many more active sites than there are abandoned sites.
In the last decade, a number of old quarries have reopened. It makes sense for folks working in the industry to do this because there can still be stone in the pits, and it costs a lot of money, well into the millions in some cases, to investigate new potential quarries. Campbell, though, plans to preserve his quarry just like this.
Earlier there, you heard Duncan Campbell reference that famous scene in the 1979 movie Breaking Away, where a group of teens is swimming in an abandoned quarry. There's a lot of intrigue surrounding these quarries, and cliff diving has become quite popular. The problem is it's quite dangerous, and just a couple of years ago, someone did die doing it in the quarry that was featured in Breaking Way. That, of course, is part of the reason Campbell wants to keep the location of his quarry hidden.
And this is a reoccurring segment, so if people have an idea for their hidden places, just email news@indianapublicmedia.org.
And we'll go explore it.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Indiana University Athletics Department officials say they're close to wrapping up negotiations for a new official apparel sponsor. The current deal with Adidas ends next year, allowing the athletic department to explore partnerships with other brands such as Nike and Under Armour. The official outfitter supplies everything from uniforms to gear for the Hoosiers' 24 Division I teams. And brands pay universities big money for those exclusive rights, sometimes as much as $9 million. Associate Athletic Director Jeremy Gray says it's important to revisit these contracts because Indiana University, while well-funded, doesn't compare to other Big Ten schools.
We are one of the lesser funded schools in the Big Ten, so the apparel arrangement, I think, is disproportionately important for our athletic department, maybe in comparison to others that get 110,000 fans to come to every single football game and pay full ticket prices.
Because it takes around a year to design new apparel, Gray says it's likely they'll announce the new sponsor sometime soon. Sure. A lot of negotiations going on right now over there.
Right, behind the scenes.
That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less. And by WTIU members. Thank you.